we had this song in our minds. Actually, Diana did a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned it, and I felt, yes, it was perfect for today. So grateful, so grateful. Pure imagination. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. Imagination is the spiritual power of the 12 spiritual powers formulated by Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore when he was doing his metaphysical study of the Bible, recognizing that every person, place, and situation was actually part of our beingness. And so he recognized that there was specific traits in all of the 12 disciples, and he called them powers or spiritual abilities, which we all inherently have inside of us. And as we claim and understand and use these 12 powers and abilities, we can create worlds that really work for everyone. And we can come into that Christ consciousness. And you may wonder, what is Christ consciousness? As we have, speak of this often. Jesus was a man who attained what we call Christ consciousness. I actually call Christ consciousness for myself, God's self, but you can have whatever name you want to call that power and presence that breathes you. I spoke of Christ consciousness on Christmas Eve, and just a quick, what is Christ consciousness that we're all seeking perhaps to have a greater embodiment of? Well, Christ consciousness is, first of all, awareness. It is the awareness of the divine being everyone and everything, including ourselves. And those are the first two principles of unity. Isn't that interesting? So to have that awareness first and foremost, and the second part of that is, and to live from unrestricted compassion and unconditional love. That is Christ consciousness, that combination. So the imagination is what I chose to be the power or ability that we were going to engage in the month of January, because everything that becomes a part of our world starts in our minds, from our consciousness, and with that power of imagination. James Dillett Freeman states, imagination is the act or power of forming a mental image of something not present to the senses or never before wholly perceived in reality. Imagination is a power that frees us from the limitation of our senses, because our senses do limit us. We think everything is just sense-oriented, and it is so far, that is so much more. He says, the imagination is the power of conception. Now, what is conception? Well, the definition of conception is to come up with and bring forth and to form an idea of, or a new experience, new life. When I think about conception, my first thought is about when the sperm and the egg come together and there is new life that is created. Metaphysically, the idea of conception is more like the idea is a seed that comes in from that which is the infinite sea of possibility. So when we tap into, Wayne Dyer calls it the infinite sea of possibilities and potentiality. So let's ever wonder where your thoughts come from? Well, there's this infinite mind with everything in it, infinite thoughts, infinite energies, and we can allow those things to pass by, come in, we can focus on them, we can let them go, we can choose what we want to focus on from that sea of creativity. So that infinite mind is connected to my mind and your mind. We are like that funnel that I spoke of. My mind is connected to infinite mind, and we can tap in or not, right? Anytime. So the question is, when we have an idea, which is these, and by the way, did you even realize how many thoughts that are regurgitated thoughts, so they're not really actually thinking? A thought and thinking is actually when something new comes into the expression of your mind. That is really what thinking is. Otherwise, it's just regurgitated thoughts coming back and forth, right? But when you have something new, that is really what thought is. So you have a thought, an idea in conception. Something comes in and you go, oh, yeah, that's new. And so something is conceived. Now that idea is a seed. The question is, what are you going to do with the seed? You can have a seed and you could put it on the table and it's not going to do much. You could leave it in the packet. If you bought a package of seeds, it's not going to do much. Or you can take that seed, that idea, and you can plant it in metaphorically into that soil of consciousness. And that is what I'm going to call the second aspect of imagination. Linda Martello-Whitsett in the book Divine Audacity, which I highly recommend, which gives a really fun, easy to understand synopsis of all the 12 powers. She breaks down each power into 3 parts. First was conception, which we spoke of on the first Sunday, and I just spoke of. The second is, and we spoke of this last week, is visioning. We take that seed, it could do nothing, or we can vision it. And visioning is our capacity to engage with more of the senses. Last week, I talked about vision, about what is your vision for your life in 2022. Now, I want to speak about the word vision personally. When I think about the word vision, I think about sight. And actually that's the first definition of what vision is. It's the faculty or ability to be able to see, literally. The second definition of vision is the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. So, how many of you have heard the statement, seeing is believing? For anyone who's in doubt, I'll believe it when I see it, especially if you're like, that's not even right. So you have that doubtful. So, right. So we have heard seeing is believing. Well, that is in the world of senses only. Now, when we move into the faith-based teachings, it's the complete opposite. The complete opposite is I'll see it when I believe it. I'll say that again. I'll see it when I believe it. And the definition of faith actually supports the I'll see it when I believe it. The definition of faith being it's the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So we need to stir up that idea of faith. So when we speak of visioning that which is the idea that we're wishing and that which we would love to have, what are we doing? Aren't we supposed to be actually seeing it in our mind's eye in the imagination, which is where everything starts? The answer is yes. We are to see it, to imagine it, to vision our dreams and what we would love. And that's in all caps, and we must feel the feelings we would have if we were having the experience, as if we were having it now. Feeling is the key. In Divine Audacity, Linda says, what can be when we hold a potent idea in mind, develop it by imagining it fleshed out. And that reminds me of when the word becomes flesh or real, physical, and manifestation. And the last part, and she says, and feel the thrill of fulfillment while incubating the idea in mind. To feel the thrill. See, all the energy is in the feeling state. There's the vibration of what we feel is what becomes real to us. So you know the word visualization, and what I want us to engage in is a derivative that Spirit gave me the idea of back in time, is to have feelization. Feelization. You can have the visual, but have it go into what does it feel like? Because really that's the energy. Okay, so how many of you have ever made a vision board, a dream board, a treasure map? I would imagine pretty much all of you have done that. I know I have. Now, I used to do a New Year's Day retreat for about 13 years in a row. And we always had release in the morning, had a potluck, and then spent the afternoon making our vision boards. Well, one year, the spirit that is breathing me spoke inside of my mind. The still small voice said, "We're not making vision boards this year." And I'm like, "What do you mean we're not making vision boards? What are we going to do in the afternoon? That's supposed to happen." And it said, "No, you're going to have I have it boards. You're going to make I have it boards." Very interesting to say, well, do you just want a vision or do you want to have the thing that you're putting out on the board, right? I want to have it. So we made I have it boards for the next few years. And I encouraged everyone as they were putting things on to say, what do you feel as you are having it? So we did that for a couple of years. And then Spirit said, we're not doing vision boards or I have it boards. I'm like, not this again, right? And now Spirit says, after a bit, you're making I am it boards. I am it boards. Okay, how many of you have ever made an I am it board? It's just, that was like, you know, Spirit loves to bring these new ideas from that infinite potential. So it's a totally, totally different energy. I actually took my vision boards, which I actually have some sitting here in the office, and I looked at vision boards that I had saved. And I thought, I looked at them and I said, I am it. And I'll tell you what, some of those vision boards were so wishy-washy that I said, that's not the energy. I recycled those. Some of the boards I looked at and I said, I am it, as I'm looking at different things. And there was like, yes. So this is a whole different ball game when you go to the I am that I am. I am it boards. And Emerson quote, also given credit to Daryl Anka, and this is one of my favorites, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So it's energy we're talking about. You want a different energy or experience or expression in 2022, then we need to be that. And I'm going to challenge you or encourage you to make an I am it board this week. You may have already made vision board, and good for that. And there's nothing wrong with a vision board or an I have it board. However, what changes when you have an I am it board? I encourage you to make it. And if we're in the church next week and you happen to come, bring it. If you're in the cyber sanctuary, bring it. You can share afterwards your I am it boards. If we were having a class, I would be having you bring it back next week. And of course, I'm doing my lessons this way instead of teaching formal classes. So the whole thing is now moving into the I am it, is the third component or element of imagination, and that is called embodiment. Embodiment. Linda Martello Whitsett says, under the heading of embodiment, the future we have been envisioning and feeling demands one thing of us, that we be. Be the person who can live in the desired future. The question is, can you see, feel, and be the person who has all the qualities necessary for you to live your desired reality? This is huge. This is total key. Mary Morrissey, a master teacher for me, spoke of this in Prosperity Plus class, which I'm planning at some point to be teaching here at the Unity Santa Fe. She talks about like a radio, that you have vibrations, because that's what we're talking about. Let's say that your dream is at a 120 frequency vibrationally, and you or myself are at a 95% frequency. Until I raise up my frequency to match that 120 vision of my desired reality, it's not going to happen. There's a gap. I need to work on myself so that I can increase my belief and my who I am and who I believe myself to be to match. Now, I had a specific example of this when I was looking to manifest my perfect love relationship. And I had my vision, and I had this vision of my perfect divine partnership. Well, what happened was I attracted someone into my life, and it was a good relationship. Truthfully, it was not the ideal 120 frequency. It actually was more like a 115, but I thought 115 was pretty good, right? Well, that relationship lasted for exactly 1 year. And in completing that relationship, we both grew. And I knew that I actually did some healing work on a part of my inner child that was having some things come up, and I do my work. I realized what was going on with me when I was 3 years old. And my 2-year-old brother came along, and so because I kept watching myself, I'm an adult. How come I feel like a little kid? So I worked on that and became aware of what my inner child had as that experience back in that day. So I grew from this relationship. The second thing that I got from that relationship, this was important. I realized that I was not the 120 vibrational frequency of the partner that I wanted. I was not that. And I wanted that. I was a 115 vibration. And so I attracted a 115 vibration, close, but not really the thing that I wanted to have. And I could not have what I desired to have because I wasn't it myself. That's huge. That's huge. And along with this whole thing about embodiment, I also spoke to a spiritual mentor of mine. And in that conversation, I said, okay, I have this vision, and you may have had this experience too. You have a vision of your ideal life, health, financials, partnership, career, whatever it is that you would desire. And yet you're living in this space that is not that. And I'm like, there's this disconnect. And I'm affirming that it is this. And it's, of course, you've heard Reverend Eliza call it the gap. What do I do with that gap? And she said, and this really landed for me. I'd heard it before, but it landed. She said, it's not about having the thing that you desire. What it really is about is being the woman who, being the person who. And it's all about who I am, not having the thing. Having a goal actually gives us something to work towards, but the goal line is not the most important thing. It's what happens when you hit the block and you fall down onto the becoming line, which is down here, the learning line. So I started to affirm, and I would encourage you to do this too. And you can say, I am the woman who, except for you guys, unless you want to be a woman who. So I am the person who has the absolute best ministry ever with the most loving, active, deeply inspired, giving community ever. I am the woman who enjoys financial freedom. I am the person who has an ever increasing, vibrant, healthy, strong, flexible, joyful body. I am the person who loves to travel and goes on cruises and spiritual adventure journeys every year. I'm going to invite you to start saying that for yourself. I am the person who, the man or woman who, so that you start to embody the being that matches the frequency of the thing that you desire. Because being the woman or the man person who is the most important thing. So these are the unity. This is actually this embodiment, and the whole thing about imagination actually matches, which is our third principle, because we are also studying the 5 basic principles. And I've been speaking of them because we wanted to get back to basics in January. 5 principles. A lot of you bought this last week. I encourage you to get the 5 principles. It's a small book packed with the 5 basic unity principles by Ellen Davenport. So I'm going to say God is, and I want you to say what all the rest of that is. So principle number 1, God is. Okay. I'm sure I can hear you. My imagination is working in my ears. I heard you say all there is. Okay, using my imagination, I'm hearing you say God is all there is. Now, I gave you an exercise this last week. How many of you went through the week and said, this too is the divine? That's what I thought. So some of you did, some of you didn't. Some of you did it some of the time, not all the time. I actually did not do it as much as I would have liked to. In fact, later in the week, there was, and by the way, you might have noticed a lot of things coming up. For me, it was like, there was a whole lot of things that I would have said, that's not the divine, before I had this understanding. And you might end up finding that the more stuff will come up that you would say is not the divine. And that's the universe helping you get that it's all the divine, whether you believe it or not. So I know that this principle, this too is the divine, is not a practice to do for 1 week only. I'm going to say this is a every day for the rest of your life, to engage in the consciousness that the man named Jesus, the way shower, had. He said, everything is the divine. I want to embody that, not just have it as a thought. So practice that. Principle number 2 is, I'm listening. Oh, I heard a few of you say it. Right on. Good for you. It's the, and I'm going to put it in these words. I am, we are all God beings. We are the divine in expression. Because God is all there is, that means I am a God being, so are you. And so is everybody, whether I think of them as the divine or not. I need to embody that. The third principle, which we're going to go into today briefly, is Ellen Davenport names the chapter, she names it Co-Creating with God. Now, to be honest, I disagree with the title. I would change the title. And the reason why is the word co-creating and the word with are suggesting that I am separate from the divine, and I am not. We are each God beings. And if I'm co-creating with God, then it's not, I'm the divine. So I would change it. And what I would change it to is, I'd rename the chapter, Creating as a God being, creating as the divine I am. I'm going to say that again. Creating as a God being, or creating as the divine I am. So I'm going to encourage you to do that as well. The God divine being, we're made in the image and likeness of the great creator. And principle number 3, and I'm just going to read this little brief part, is our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Okay, all 3. You have thoughts, it's the feelings, and it's the beliefs. And I'll talk more about this next week. I'm going to combine 3 and 4 next week, because I have more to bring, and I don't want to be here too long today, but I'm having this now. So she says, while she thinks of it as co-creating with God, the law also works for those who have no concept of God. So therefore, the with God thing doesn't even work because it is a principle in a law. And a principle is something that works all the time, everywhere, with everyone. It never changes. And it is often called the law of attraction, law of mind and action, science of mind, the art of allowing, and also the secret. The thing is we are choosing what we focus on. That is what is our power. I have the choice to focus on things. I chose to focus on something that really made me sad this week. I thought that was ridiculous, but I was just making that choice and I knew I was doing it. And it was like, well, if I wasn't thinking that, it wouldn't be sad. It's like, that's correct. So why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just choosing to be, I need to have this feeling for a minute, but I don't want to stay on it. And I actually talked to my mentor because I was processing something that had occurred to me as a possibility. And it was it created sadness because our thoughts actually create our feelings. And we'll get into that more next week. So we get to focus in creating. We are creating all the time. It's not works of art necessarily or inventions. What are we creating? We're creating our life every day by what we're thinking, feeling, and believing. And some of that stuff is subconscious. So I'm going to move into the fact that we have a holiday tomorrow, and that is Martin Luther King Day, right? So do you believe that Martin Luther King Jr. had an imagination? Shake your head yes if you think so. He had an imagination. Did he have a dream? Absolutely. Did Martin Luther King Jr. have a small dream? No. Did he have a dream just for himself? Or did his dream include others? All others. I'd like to share a portion of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream with you now. And so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream today down in Alabama with its vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. Breathe. Question: did Martin Luther King dream, was his dream full of feeling? Yes. Was Martin Luther King Jr. the embodiment of his dream? I say absolutely yes. Now it's your turn. It's our turn to create the vision and dream, to feel our dreams, to embody our dreams for our individual selves, but even more importantly, for our community and for our world. When do we need to do that? Right now, right here. In closing, I have a dream. I, Liz Luoma, have a dream. I have a dream that Unity Santa Fe becomes more of a lighthouse, a place where the disillusioned, downhearted, disenfranchised can come and do and be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. I have a dream that the Unity core teachings become embodied in each and every person who comes to Unity Santa Fe, and that we carry this truth and the love, unconditional love with us as we see everyone and everything as the divine that they are and we are. I have a dream that adults with children have found us and are bringing their children here to learn and to live the Unity principles while they're young, and that they learn the tools of affirmation, truth, meditation, so that they can navigate their worlds and help create a world that works for everyone. I have a dream that Unity Santa Fe is a vibrant healing and teaching center for all beings. I have a dream that everyone who attends Unity Santa Fe finds ways to serve as they discover more deeply the joys of sacred service, using their own unique gifts and talents and passions. I have a dream that Unity Santa Fe has the best and very best, most uplifting, inspirational music team ever, with guest musicians enhancing our spiritual teachings and our message. I have a dream that through our ever increasing donations, that we now have highly prolific technical equipment and teams that serve an ever increasing number of people through our virtual offerings. I have a dream. I have a dream that you are the embodiment of this dream and even greater. Will you join me in knowing it's not just my dream, it's our dream. Together in unity, we are one, and it is done. So it is.